Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. I have an incredible friend on today's show. Miss Lauren Salaun is a PR and marketing consultant, media personality, speaker, entrepreneur, and podcast host. She is a former health coach, personal trainer, fitness model, and competitor. After years of hustling, running multiple businesses at one time, but not seeing the results she knew she truly deserved, Lauren decided to go all in and own her mission. And that's when everything changed. Now she runs a PR plus influencer marketing agency called Influence and Impact and is the founder of the PR Accelerator, where she helps entrepreneurs increase their authority and visibility so they can scale their income and impact with ease. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you so much. My goodness, I am so stinking excited to be on the show and to chat with you.
Yes, I know. I love you. I just adore
right back at you. And on real talk, my favorite podcast episodes, whether I'm a guest or they're on my show, is literally when it's somebody that I know well, like my friends, and we can just have such a real, unfiltered conversation. It's the best. So this is going to be so fun.
I know this is going to be fun. I know. I love doing that too with friends, with people that I know, because I mean, it's just like a girl talk. It's like, I'm just talking to you on the phone.
Yeah, exactly. Let's share it with everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's tuning into our lives. It's the days of our lives. So I want to go ahead and dive into your story, how you obviously what I just mentioned, your journey, but I need you to dive deep into all
Yes, absolutely.
Where fears ever came up for you, where there was darkness that you brought to light now, and just, how,
oh my gosh,
you went from health coaching and now you're doing this and, all that.
So much. Yeah. So much. And I'll give the couple minute version and we can absolutely dig into it more. So long story short, it's not going to be that short, y'all. So as Kelly mentioned, I today run a PR agency and have a PR coaching / hybrid agency program for entrepreneurs. And I work with a lot of entrepreneurs in the health, wellness, personal development, and entrepreneurship space to help them, exactly like you were saying, stand out online, increase their authority, get more visible, and scale their business through public relations, through strategic visibility. And the bulk of my career has been in PR, marketing, advertising, everything like that. And I left the last agency I was at. So I've been an entrepreneur working for myself for 7 years now, which is crazy because it feels like 100 years and 1 minute at the same time. I don't even know what is time. And so left my last PR agency back in 2014 because I was insanely burnt out. I wasn't doing work that I was really excited about. And I felt like I had no control or freedom in my life, right? And so the last agency I was at, we specialized in crisis communications in the healthcare industry. And so all of our clients that we were working with were in emergency situations. Shit has hit the fan. They've hired us months later than they should have to literally come in and help them save their hospital or help them significantly turn things around in the face of crisis. And as you can imagine, that creates a very high stress work environment and very high stress workload. We were killing it and growing very fast and had tons of clients. And so I was working 60 to 80 hours a week, again, with very high stress projects. And I am absolutely a recovering workaholic, control freak, do way too many things, overachiever kind of person. So that kind of container, that kind of setting was such a great recipe for me to burn myself out and become massively unfulfilled. And so after about 4 years, my last year there, I was miserable. I was having an anxiety attack once a week in the bathroom, in the office, eating my lunch at my desk, never getting up to take a break. I've been an athlete my whole life. I was sacrificing my own physical health, absolutely my mental health as well. I would sometimes go 2 weeks without breaking a sweat, which oh, whatever, not working out for 2 weeks, not that big of a deal. But that's something that keeps me grounded and helps me like mentally, emotionally, stress management, everything. So it was a big deal to be neglecting that so much. And I finally was like, got to this point where I just couldn't do it anymore. And I didn't exactly know what the next thing would be, but I knew that I needed something else. Right. And I was so burnt out and so stressed from years of that I didn't exactly have a plan like for what that next chapter would be. So when I left, like I had a couple consulting clients under my belt and decided, you know what the hell, let's just freaking go and we'll figure it out. And that was absolutely scary. And two of my like main reasons for leaving were so that I could prioritize myself, take better care of myself, which includes getting back into a regular fitness routine, starting my day with me, not like opening my phone at 5 a.m. and checking email and stuff like that. And just being in this stress, like responsive place all day. And I wanted more freedom and flexibility over how I work, when I work, where I work, the kind of work I was doing. I wanted to do work that lit me up so much more. Cause like at the end of the day, even though I feel like we were doing really important work in the healthcare industry, like learning about hospital insurance disputes and that kind of stuff, not really the most exciting thing for me. So I left and jumped right into social media consulting, PR consulting. And that gave me the time and flexibility to prioritize myself, to like figure out what my hobbies were and what my passions were and that kind of stuff. And to really decompress from years of stress and like just being in this like almost fight or fight place. And I started getting back into fitness for myself and I'm such a social sharer. And so I was sharing what I was doing online and organically, kind of accidentally built a fitness business where me as fitness influencer, me as health coach, got into bodybuilding and competing and that kind of stuff. And so I had these two businesses running at the same time, my PR and marketing, and then my fitness business. And I wasn't seeing like the A+ results, like whether that was recognition or in my bank account or in my time flexibility that I felt like I should be seeing, right? I was working my ass off, working a ton of hours and still like, wait, what the hell? My bank account should be growing much faster than it's growing. Like what is going on here? And I had that going on for a few years, honestly, where I'm like juggling these two things, never fully jumping all in on one or the other. And when you like put not half-assed effort, but when your attention is split, your results are going to be split as well. You're not going to get the A+ results if you're not putting A+ intention into the thing. Yeah. And I remember I was at an event that I helped to sell out through PR, through social sharing, through influencer marketing, that kind of stuff. And at that point, I was just running my business really on like a project by project basis. So I wasn't doing it as a full-time thing because I still had that like PTSD from my last agency job where I'm like, no, PR is stressful. If I'm doing PR and marketing, then I'm going to be a workaholic. And that means I'm going to be on my phone all the time and working crazy hours, all that. That was the story that I had. So I was doing it on like project by project basis and was having like literally dream clients referred to me asking to work with me. And so I'd be like, oh, they sound great. Sure, we'll do this, but not super taking it seriously. And I remember I was at an event, actually at an event that you most likely were at as well, Pays to Be Brave with Angie Lee a few years ago. And my team and I helped and worked with Angie that year and helped to sell it out at 1,500 people. Whereas the year prior, it sold out at 500. And so like we killed it, right? It was such a successful event and did a great job on that project. And I had one of my girlfriends come up to me, somebody who knows me in real life, and say like, okay, I know that you helped so-and-so with their book launch. I know you helped so-and-so with this event. And then with that product and that program and this sort of thing. And you're here now. And I know that you helped with this, but I don't know what you do. And I was like, oh shit, because here I am like Miss Social Media all over the place and like all the time thinking, and like not just Miss Social Media, but also like, hi, I'm in the world of strategic communications and messaging and stuff. And somebody who knows me personally doesn't know what I do based on what I'm putting out into the world. So therefore, people who don't know me are even more confused, right? And a confused audience, you know, they're never going to buy. And so it's like talking into a vacuum, because if you're not being clear in your message, you're not going to, nothing's going to land with anybody. It's not going to resonate. People aren't going to understand how to work with you. And so that for me was such a wake up call that I needed to make a decision, right? And just like jump in one way or the other. And then at that event also, I had another literally like dream client be like, oh, hey, you and I should talk about my upcoming launch. I would love to hire you. And I'm like, ugh, again, another dream client just asking to work with me. Oh my gosh. And so that it was there that I was like, okay, I either need to do this for real. And that can be 3 months, right? 6 months. It doesn't mean forever, but we either jump in with both feet and give it a go, or I need to move away from this and put all my energy and attention into the other stuff. And then it still took me after that realization. So I like kind of committed to getting back into it. It still took me like 2 years after that, a year after that, to really take it seriously and like listen to that advice. And honestly, I still had fitness income coming in back in March. So like a year ago, March 2020, still had some of that safety net income going on. And like, well, I'm not quite ready to pivot out of all my fitness stuff because I love my clients and they're so great. And like, I really do love spending time with them and all this, you know, that. So not yet. So I was dragging my feet, even though I knew I was ready to make that switch and to go all in. And so once COVID happened, like, there we go, pivot done for me. Right. So like all that fitness income, because I was doing some in-person training as well, because I needed to mix it up and be out of the house a bit more a week, right? Like a substantial, like several $1,000s a month went away very fast. And I was like, well, we have pivoted. We are officially pivoted and it's go time. And so all my energy, I was like, we are jumping in with both feet. All the backup plans have been eliminated and let's go. And so from March on, like I, in 2020, had my best year in business, made more than I've ever made in my life, worked less than I've ever made in my life, felt so insanely aligned and like I was providing so much value into the world. And that happened because I decided and was kind of forced to jump all in on the main thing and really own my expertise, own my voice, and share my message of what I do and how my team and I help people, like share that loudly and consistently and like all over the place as much as possible, even if I didn't feel totally ready, right? Even if I felt like I was taking freaking lots of messy action, which I was, and it worked, right? And that momentum has continued. So that's like long story long, honestly, how I got like to where I'm at now. And there's plenty of things like along that journey, like anxiety, depression, relationship stuff, like all kinds of lessons and peaks and valleys along the way. Absolutely. But yeah, it all boils down to like really, really going all in on the main thing, owning my expertise, owning and getting that message out into the world.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So follow up to that. As far as like, you know, you said that it was like, you're kind of like dragging the health and the fitness stuff along for a while. So now looking back, can you recognize like maybe what the fear was or what was actually like holding you to that?
Yeah. I mean, so at the time, for sure, scarcity stuff around money. If I'm like, well, this money is coming in consistently every month and I know that, and it's easy. So like, why would I say no to that? Or why would I end that and shift into something that's like, maybe hasn't been as consistent or whatever. Right. So there was definitely like trust and scarcity issues going on. I wasn't fully trusting myself that I am abundant and can create money out of thin air. Right. I also like genuinely did love my clients and the people that I got to spend time with. I also was training out of a really nice gym here in Los Angeles, and I didn't want to lose access to that as well. So it's like all that kind of stuff. And here's the thing. So looking back, it's like, oh, I can fully continue to have relationships with my clients without being their trainer, right? I can fully afford to be a member of this gym without being like working out of it.
Right.
And we get to do that like once I step into this new space. So absolutely. And even while I was in it, I was like, oh, we're procrastinating. We're dragging our heels a little bit on this. And I'm recognizing that. And like, come on, Lauren, let's get it together and like, just jump already.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, saying about the relationships that you had built with your clients and everything, I think that is, I mean, whether it's someone in a career, business, or relationships, like whatever, that is like the biggest thing that I hear is like, well, I'm afraid of like losing my friends, or like, I love the community support of that or whatever. And it's like, if they're meant to be your friend, they will be your friend still outside of what you're doing.
Like, exactly. And like, let's be real. Like when it comes to training, like someone's investing money, not necessarily like the main reason isn't because you're the best at teaching someone how to do workouts and how to do nutrition. It's because of the human connection element. I'm sorry, And so I'm like, oh, like, yeah, like if I want to maintain a relationship with my clients, like I can totally do that. It's fine. Like, so yeah, it was a lot of that scarcity energy, but I very much felt in my body, like it was never, I called 2019. So that year training a lot of clients, my gap year, because I had been pivoting in my business from 2018 to 2019, wasn't feeling inspired in my business. I wasn't excited about it. I wasn't clear on what that pivot was going to look like. And so I needed an entrepreneur break, to be perfectly honest. I was also dealing with some major personal life stuff within my relationship and some depression as well. And so I needed things to feel easy. I needed things to be simple. I wanted a break from being my own boss and stuff like that. I wanted to get out of the house more. I wanted a more consistent schedule that had like set hours and stuff. So I always knew that it wasn't a long-term plan. It was like, okay, let's take a year doing this. And, I chose to work out of a gym that has incredible networking. It's one of the top gyms in Los Angeles. And so chose to work there because I very much wanted to expand my network and build some new relationships too, which I very much did, and knew, okay, this is like a year-long thing. And so I probably was there about a year and a half and was like, okay, Lauren, you said this is a year. We're coming up on a year and a half. What you doing? You don't get to be here for 2 years. So you better figure it out.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, I love that you said that too about having a gap year. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but like I worked a 9 to 5, and then back in 2017, I left that 9 to 5 and just pursued my own stuff for a while. And I was health coaching at the time, and I was working working for a fitness app. So it was like a gym, but not physical. I didn't physically have to be somewhere. But yeah, I was a trainer as well. And, everything was easy. I mean, it was great. Like I loved that. But then, this was around the time I was like actually meeting you in 2018. Like I was just in this risk-taking adventure of like journey of my life. Like I put thousands upon thousands of dollars on a credit card and got myself in really not bad debt, good debt. Now that I think about it, it was not bad debt. It was good debt, but it drove me absolutely into depression. And like, I remember having a conversation with a friend, and I was like, I think I have like financial depression. Like, I don't know if that's a thing, but that was the thing. Like, I was like, because I feel fine everywhere else in my life in a sense, but like, I don't know how to get out of this. Like, and so where I feel like my quote unquote gap year was, like, I actually went and got a 9 to 5, and which I'm still at right now to this day, but I kind of like just took a break on coaching. I was trying to like rediscover what the hell I wanted to do at that point, because I did not want to do the health coaching, and I had worked with a one-on-one coach with the mindset stuff. And I was like, oh my God, like, this is what I want to do. But I had like one foot on the ledge of the pool, the rest of my body in the pool. And it was like, I could not let go of the side of the pool.
Yeah.
I couldn't let go. And it feels like I have been on that ledge for the last 2 years of my life too, because after the show came out, I was reintroduced as a health coach, and I was like ready to,
and you're like, no, I rebranded, edit it.
I know. So then I was like, oh my God, okay, this is like God's message for me to just like keep going with the flow of this health coaching thing. But I wasn't like, and it made me like so out of alignment. So I was more so showing up in like the people pleasing. I'm like, okay, well, what does my audience want? Do they want, maybe they want like this like influencer girl. So maybe I'll be like this influencer girl instead and ride the wave of like the show. And I was so in my head. I mean, I just like recently a month ago experienced 2 anxiety attacks. I've never had anxiety. I've never had an anxiety.
And that's
so much.
Well, and that's wild that you haven't experienced anxiety until like really recently, especially with everything going on over the past year and with the show and everything like that. Like, great. That's awesome. Like that is just, and hopefully.
Probably I was experiencing it. I just hadn't had the attack yet. Let's put it this way.
Yeah. It was a slow simmer. Well, and that can, like, I can only imagine how confusing and frustrating, and yes, like pulling you out of alignment that can be when you're like, oh, well, what does everyone else want from me?
Yeah.
And that's where you're leading from, or that's kind of what's driving you, rather than having the clarity and like turning inward first. Absolutely. That'll drain all your energy so fast. And something I wanted to say too, with like you going back into a 9-to-5 and stuff like that, me taking my gap year at a gym and stuff, like I had so many questions from people when I was there, that because people assume, you're a new trainer or something like that, that you're like, people thought I was like 25 years old, and that like nobody knows you, right? Like no one knows what you've done and all that kind of stuff. And so I would get asked all the time, like, wait, you have your own business, or you've been running your own business for the last like 5 years? Like, isn't this a step backwards? All the time I would get asked that. And I would say, well, I took a pay cut. Yes. And I'm okay with that for this season. My intention with being here. So I was very clear on why I was doing it and how it was adding value to my life and serving me, so that when people would say that, like, yeah, it would sometimes like my ego would be like, tell them everything amazing that you've done, so they don't think, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, I know very clearly like why I'm doing this and how it's serving me and helping me right now. And I also know it's not forever. So like you might see it as a step backwards, but like, I'm seeing it as an opportunity for me to grow in these areas and also reprioritize some other stuff that's more important than running my own business right now. And it was very much what I needed during that time. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking back too, in hindsight with my, 9-to-5 as well, like I hate even saying like, oh yeah, I had to go back and get a 9-to-5, because it wasn't going back. Like you're never going backwards in life. Like you're only going forward. And so I'm like, no, it created an opportunity to get like a money monkey off my back for me to pay off my fucking debt, like all the stuff, like, so I was like, it was actually the best thing. It was a great investment of my time to do that. So, it has served its purpose.
Beautiful. Perfect.
And now we're back in alignment. We're all good to go. So, yeah. So one question, because I'm sure other people have this, so you were still kind of like posting like health stuff and, your PR stuff. So did you ever have like 2 separate Instagram accounts? Like, cause there's a lot of people out there that have like multiple businesses, or they think they have to have like a personal and a business kind of Instagram account. And I'm like, just do one.
My gosh. I'm like, just do one, because like Instagram's already plenty to manage. I do not want to be managing multiple accounts. I have a agency profile and an agency account, but it just like acts as a landing page. Like I don't even post to it. So at that time, so for several years when things were confusing to my audience, I was posting about like all kinds of stuff, like business, fitness, like whatever. For that year that I was doing a lot of training, it was mostly fitness content, like fitness, personal development, empowerment, self-worth, that kind of stuff. But a lot of fitness content. So if you like scroll back, it's like mainly like me looking like a fitness person. And then I remember it was like in September, probably. So I had joined a mastermind in, I forget when it started, October, maybe. Joined a mastermind, October, that would have been 2019. And I think October or September, who cares? It doesn't matter the dates. And so once I joined that and I started feeling more excited about getting back into my own business, feeling motivated, coming out of my depression, all of that, I started folding some PR content, visibility content back into the mix. And then of course, when everything shifted, it was like full PR content. And so I had a few months there where I was starting to like sprinkle it in, but then when that content just started to take over too. So I, started to like sprinkle the nuggets in there. And then we had like a full shift to it being really PR and marketing focused. Yeah. And that was even before I had fully like left what I was doing in the fitness space, but I was ready for it. And wasn't necessarily interested in bringing on new fitness opportunities, fitness clients, that kind of stuff. So I didn't really need or care to like, put that message out there.
Yeah. No, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Because I mean, like I said, I feel like so many people are just like, well, I don't know. But, you spoke to me in that regard too. I mean, just like listening, I'm like, oh my God, that's what I've had people tell me in the past too. Like, I don't really know what you do. Like, I know you help people, but I don't know how. Yeah. Because I would be the same way. Like I would post like things about money mindset or business strategy. And then I'm talking about self-love. And then I'm talking about like, okay, go eat your green vegetables. Like,
yeah, they're like, cool. How do you make money? What are you doing? Yeah. And so that's such a reminder for all of us. Like when it, like a marketing reminder, PR reminder, like say what you do and how people can work with you and pay you. Right. Yeah. So you just got to say it. People are not going to assume. And if it's confusing, they're going to be like, well, I don't know, but whatever.
Yeah. And I think, too, so I come from, I've had direct sales or network marketing experience and, some of their strategy is kind of like the secret marketer kind of thing. Like, I want to say it. It's like you like hold the product.
Create intrigue. Yeah. So that they ask, what are you doing? How do you do it? That sort of thing. I'm like, yeah, that works to a certain extent to build that like exclusivity and excitement and stuff like that. But then also for the people who aren't going to slide into your DMs or reach out and be like, hey, I'm curious, tell me more, like make it easy for them.
Right. Yeah. This is what it is. This is what it does. This is how much it costs. Do you want any? Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
I know. Well, I could never be, I felt so weird being anything but just like, here it is. Mm-hmm. And I'm still that way. I like being transparent. I like being vulnerable. I like being raw. Yes. So, okay. So I do want to ask you though, just because this is a big, like part of your journey, like as far as doing like the fitness competitions. Yeah. Like what motivated you to do that? And what did you learn from it? Would you ever do it again?
Yeah. So I grew up an athlete. So I played just about every sport my entire life. Soccer was my main sport. So I was very competitive in soccer, chose not to play in college, but still like was very active, and kind of coming out of college, started getting into like weightlifting and stuff like that, but never like super intensely. And then when I left my last agency job, like I was saying, I got back into fitness for myself and really started taking it a lot more seriously and like learning more about that and building my like accidental fitness business. And part of that was a network marketing business as well. Did some network marketing in there too. And like I said, like when I needed that entrepreneur break and stuff like that, I was getting more into fitness and having more fun with that and building up that business more. And I was on a call with somebody. I was introducing friends. One one did competitions and one was looking for a coach for a competition and one was a coach, that sort of thing. And so we're on a call together to connect them. And one of them was like, Lauren, why don't you do a competition? Like, you should do it. There's another one in like this long. And I was like, I don't know. Well, okay, sure. That sounds cool. And so for me, and so I did that one. And then I did a few more after that. So between like 2018 and 2019, I did about 3 competitions. And for me, I was leaning into the fitness space more. And so I was absolutely like excited to do more in the fitness space. I was excited to learn more because in that process, competing and learning, prepping for a competition, you learn so much about science, nutrition, like building muscle, fitness, like your own body, all that kind of stuff. So I was excited to learn and expand my knowledge. I love to like perform and that kind of stuff. So it allowed me also to kind of like feed that performing bug, because like, hi, you're up on stage, like in a like glittery rhinestoney bikini, like pulling out your best Beyonce moves. Right. And so that was exciting to me. And I also wanted to sharpen my mindset and my focus and my discipline. So I was really excited about how when you really like chisel the axe, if you will, like in one area, that focus and determination and discipline, that spreads to every other area of your life, I think. So fitness and sports and like being consistent with my workouts, at least the last like 5+ years has been a pretty easy thing for me to be consistent with that. And so I was like, okay, let's sharpen that and then be able to pull that focus into my business more, And so it was for all those areas. And I was also still dealing with some like self-worth stuff and worthiness issues and things like that. And I was very aware going into competing that it wasn't necessarily coming from a place of lack. I think there was some of that for sure in there, but I was really comfortable in my own skin. Like I loved my body. And so it wasn't about like, oh, let me get approval in some sense. Like there was a little probably undertones of that for sure. But it was so much like, well, let's like experience my body through this process and like see what happens and watch it transform and stuff like that and learn more. I also, during those 2 years, was like dealing with a lot of intense personal life stuff in my marriage at the time. And so for me also, and so I was feeling very out of alignment. And so for me also, it was a way for me to have like a lot of control, like probably like too much, a little like control over something. Like I could be so like hyper obsessed and focused on this and like crazy about exactly how much food I was eating and how much I was working out and all this kind of stuff that, and in other areas, maybe I didn't feel like I had control or I didn't feel like I had clarity. So I was channeling that need for control and structure and stuff into competing as well. But it was a very interesting process. Like I learned so much. I, for the first time, really got to play with body image issues. Like I had never really had that, like, as a teenager here and there sort of thing, but have always felt pretty comfortable in my own skin, but got to play with like having some like probably soft body dysmorphia happening from time to time where you look in the mirror and you're like, oh my gosh, my competition's in 2 months. I will never be ready. And then the next day you're like, what was I thinking yesterday? Everything's fine. So that kind of stuff was very new for me. I had never really experienced self-doubt in that way. Like when it comes to my body and my physique and like picking myself apart in the mirror. And I didn't do that much. I was able to be very aware of that when I stepped into that space and be like, oh, hey, look at what you're doing right now. Be gentle with yourself. Like you don't go down that route. And so it gave me a lot of, allowed me to empathize a lot better with clients too. And people who do struggle with that kind of stuff. And ultimately, like I absolutely loved the process. I think I learned so much from it. It was a really, it was a great outlet for me in a lot of ways during that time. Absolutely. And now, like, I don't think I would ever compete again. It's a major commitment, you know, the amount of training, meal prep, like sleep, like all the things to do for it. It's a lot. And so just from an energetic and like time standpoint, it's not really appealing to me anymore. And I got like the lessons that I needed to learn from it, I got. And so I don't feel called to that. And also like I like my body with like a bit of meat on it too. And so while yes, like when you're competing, like you get down to very unrealistic levels and it's not sustainable. So that's something really important for people to know is like what you look like the week of a competition. You should never like lock that in as what you want to look like all the time because it's very unrealistic and you're manipulating water and stuff like that. So being very aware of that. But even like once I got to 6 weeks out from a competition, I'm like, okay, now we're getting too skinny and too shredded for my ideal body. And I know that this is just what my body's going to look like for the next 6 weeks for this very specific purpose. And then we get to go back to like a more normal. So it was always really cool to see what my body was capable of, even though sometimes in the moment I'm like, oh, this is not my preference for how I want to look. But also look at how cool, like, look at these muscles that I can see. Look at like how my body is adapting, like depending on what foods I'm eating and stuff. So it was a really cool process. And like for where I'm at now, like it's not really appealing to me anymore to put that kind of energy into it, nor is it like for my body. My body's like super happy right now. And I'm like loving, like, I think I'm probably not the heaviest I've ever been, but I'm close.
Yeah.
I'm like 5 pounds off from it. And I feel great.
Good. Well, and that speaks to the fact that you've grown so much internally, your self-love, your self-worth, and just being so in love with your life. I feel like it's just a result of.
Yeah, exactly. There are new adventures and challenges to jump into.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I love what you said about like when you were doing that, having that experience of like that you had control. And because you couldn't find control in other areas of your life, there were other things that were just out of your control. So that was very interesting and to me, because I think a lot of us, particularly us women, we do like to have control over lots of things, money, relationships, the way people do things, you know, we have a very quote unquote mothering nature about us. And we may do that to ourselves or we do it to other people. And when we start to lose that control, it's like, oh no. Like we spaz out.
Yeah. And during that time, like my, you know, you and I have talked about this, but in 2020, my soon to be ex-husband and I decided we were splitting up. Yeah. So it, for me, was such an interesting experience in control. And I don't know that I necessarily saw it that way in the moment. I was like, yeah, well, I'm getting so focused in this area and that's going to bleed into my business stuff and everything like that and help me like sharpen the axe in other areas of my life, which is true. But I also had at certain times, because my first competition was just to do it for fun and to see what happens and to learn. Right. And then I was like, okay, if I'm going to do more of these, then I'm going to do it as like a very serious professional athlete. So I took it very seriously, and which is required, you know, if you want to do well. But then there were, looking back, absolutely times where I'm like, oh, I was being a little bit of a psycho. And like even that, like, oh, if I didn't get enough, like all my food in, or if I, you know, whatever it was, like having some of the kind of like mind fuckery, if you will, that went with that. But at that time, so 2018, 2019, my ex-husband and I were working through some major things in our relationship. And we ended up in 2020 deciding to transition out of our marriage, which was the right thing for both of us. But back then in 2018, 2019, I was feeling very much like my relationship was unsettled or something was off, and we were working on some big stuff and having some major things going on together. And so when your primary relationship, right, when you're like something that's such an important part of your life, your marriage, your partnership feels off, that affects everything. And so looking back, and it didn't even take that long, like in retrospect to see this, but it was also a way for me to feel like I had control in my life when I didn't feel like I had control in other areas, right? I didn't feel like I had clarity or control or alignment in my relationship. And so I'm like, well, I can become like a psycho, super controlling, like obsessive with these fitness competitions. And there we go. I've got some of that semblance of control in my life, and I'm in charge, sort of thing. And so, and I will say too, like, you know, there were absolutely times when I throw the word like psycho around there. Like I was taking good care of myself as best as I could for what I was going through. Like I said, I was dealing with a lot of anxiety and depression. My marriage was on the slow path to ending and stuff like that. Ooh, feeling the feels. And so I was never like doing things that were unhealthy as far as like to my body or anything like that. I was taking like the process very seriously as far as sleep, hydration. I never took any weird supplements or anything like that. I was all natural, everything. But that need to prioritize that over so many other things in my life, or just that fixation with it was, you know, a need for grasping onto some control in my life, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
Yeah. How have things, I guess, changed or evolved, you know, since the relationship ending? Yeah.
So that was, it's crazy. Shit. 2020 was surreal, right? For everybody in a million ways. And I think that some of the gifts from 2020 were, it showed us, I think, for myself and many people, I think it showed you what's working in your life, right? Mm-hmm. And it also showed you what wasn't working, right? And it shined an even brighter light on those things that are out of alignment. And I think also forced us all to really look at how we're spending our time and our energy and what our values and priorities are, and to get that into alignment if it wasn't already. And so one of those things, like in like literally Christmas of 2019, my ex-husband and I bought our home. We moved in like the week of Christmas. So like we were planning on like, you know, the long haul and everything like that. And so really like the very start of 2020, we were in this new home together, like, you know, that we were talked about like having our babies in and stuff like that. And then we decided, like, it didn't take that long, but like once everything started shutting down, like the whole world and everything, and I had pivoted into my consulting and PR business much more, and like that was going really, really well. I looked around and I'm like, okay, like I'm married to like an incredible man. My ex-husband is one of the best humans I know, married to this incredible man. We have this beautiful home. We've furnished it like exactly how I want. Everything is falling into place, right? My business is fucking booming and like momentum is amazing, making incredible money. And with everything falling into place, it's all happening the way it should. That made me even more aware that there was something wrong in the relationship, right? And so it was a lot of the stuff it was a lot of things that we'd been working on for a few years, you know, but that we hadn't quite figured out. And we're still having the same conversations and arguments and stuff like that. And so we very quickly, I think it was like April, started having some really big conversations about our relationship and stuff like that. And we had a blast together, like so much fun. There were so many beautiful things about our relationship, so many. And so once we like lockdown, if you will, happened, like, it's not like it was like, oh, and then we were stuck together and I realized I don't like it. Like, not at all. Oh my gosh. Like, we loved spending all that time together, but it also made it much more obvious the stuff that wasn't working really wasn't working. And we needed to either figure it out or we needed to like figure out a different solution. And so we had a lot of talks, started, you know, getting into therapy, all that kind of stuff. And very quickly both realized, you know what, I think it's actually time. Like, I don't think this is right anymore. And that is, you know, no matter what, it was more my doing or my decision, I guess, but ultimately ended up being a very mutual thing for both of us. And even if it's the right decision. Like anytime a marriage ends, like it's a sad thing. Right. And so it was intense. And it's interesting because since we had been working on things for a while and, I think the human body is so smart, like so smart. And so like, I think I had known deep down, like something was off for a while, even though I wasn't acknowledging it. I was like, no, I'm not getting divorced. That's not an option. We're making this work, Mm-hmm. And so once we put that out into the open and decided that and talked about that, and it was out there, it was like, oh my gosh, this is the right choice. And it has been for a while. Like, how do we never like, and so like, I think everything happens the way that it's supposed to, when it's supposed to. Right. And so, so it was that thing. Once we decided that, neither of us changed our minds, and we stayed living together in the house for 2 months until he moved out. And never once did we like think we were making a wrong decision at all. And we were able to really like honor the relationship that we had and then step into something new. But like, oh my goodness, that's great. Like, even if it's the most aligned thing. And I can also say that we have had the chillest, most beautiful, love-filled, respectful divorce process I could have ever imagined. Like I couldn't imagine it being easier with my ex, which I'm so grateful for, like the human that he is and how we're able to still be partners and coming out of our partnership. Like it's been incredible in that sense. It's still devastating. Like, oh my gosh. And so much healing. And we even like both felt during the process, we're like, I feel too good almost. Like, I feel like I should be really like fucked up over this more so than I am. Mm-hmm. Right. Or that I shouldn't be healing as quickly as I am. But here's the thing, like that was just kind of a sign that, oh, this has been under the surface for a while. Like our subconsciouses have been kind of preparing for this, even if we didn't acknowledge it, or if we didn't hear it, or if we didn't realize that was what was going on. So definitely did a lot of work, a lot of therapy, plant medicine, meditation, like all that kind of stuff, like tapping into my divine feminine, like all the things to really heal over the past year, and did a lot of deep work around it. And there's still work to do for sure. But yeah, that's a major transition. So like a huge. And not to mention like the whole, oh yeah, I'm going to decide to end a 10-year relationship while on lockdown when we're not allowed to go out into the world and meet new people. Oh, cool. And so I like, had plenty of meltdown moments where I'm like, I'm going to be single forever and just get a ton of dogs.
Right.
Yeah. I got one dog. I just got one so far.
Good. Yeah. No, I thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing.
You're welcome.
I had tears in my eyes because I just could feel it,
Yeah.
It's not like you said, it's still devastating. I mean, I think I told you this, outside of the podcast, obviously, but, I had relations with a friend of mine that I've known for 25 years. And I know I talk about him literally on every episode, I feel like, but it was such a big part of my life, and a lot of my healing, most of my healing journey has come from it. Just really creating that alignment with myself. But although I was not in a marriage, it felt like your story is very familiar to me. It's like, I realized in 2020 also, like, this isn't working. Like, and I love this human too. It's the same thing. And, we agreed to cut ties and, just go our separate ways to savor any friendship, because like I said, we've known each other for 25 years, like to savor any friendship and not because we felt like we do love each other and we're just attracted to each other and all the things, but we were not in alignment for each other. And therefore, we both said it. We're like, we can continue doing this, but it's never going to get better because we're not allowing ourselves to get better, basically. So, but like I said, we haven't talked, we haven't seen each other or talked in over six months now. And there's been so much healing. I don't know for him, but for me, I have just radically, I've worked with a love coach, like a love and relationship expert. I have even just like having these interviews with people and just like learning more about their relationships. It's so healing through story.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yes.
And so thank you again for sharing that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Not just healing parts of me. It's, all the listeners out there too.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I never thought it would be part of my story and part of my plan. And like, you then also have to you get to rewrite all your like future casting and vision stuff, like, cause had that not happened, like shit, I'd probably be like pregnant or something at this point. So you get to like reimagine then, okay, well now what does everything possibly get to look like?
Yeah, I love that.
Which like there's definitely grief and mourning that comes with leaving any, shifting, transitioning out of any kind of relationship. And so there absolutely was that for, that past, like what I thought my life was going to look like with that human. But then it also opens up so many possibilities for like, okay, if not that, then better.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. Yeah. Someone that is going to, fit even better, like you said.
Yes. Yes.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much. Today was awesome.
Oh my gosh, I know. This was so fun. I know. Well, good thing we're gonna do this on my show, so we'll get to just continue the conversation.
I know. I'm so excited. It's so funny because I'm like, I try and stay like an hour, like do an hour podcast. I'm like, I could talk to these people, like every one of my guests, I could talk to you for like 4 hours.
Oh my gosh. Same.
I have to do like our part 2 and 3.
Girl, I hear you. Same page. Exactly.
But thank you so much.
You are so welcome
for being a part of this. So tell people where they can find you. If you're launching anything right now, like share all your goodness.
Absolutely. So you guys can all find me on Instagram. Primarily, it's Lauren Salaun. So just my first and last name. I'm super active on there, especially in the stories. And yeah, the PR Accelerator program, we run that a couple times a year. You can get info on that on my website, laurensalaun.com. The next one is in early May, but we also have a completely evergreen digital virtual version that you can go at your own pace as well. Yeah, those are the main things, but I would love for everybody like slide up in my DMs and say hi, please, please, please. Would love to connect with you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you again, sweetie.
You're welcome. Thank you.